I am Dovid Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching with our friends over at Eternity Time, whoever you watch or listen to your podcast, we're excited to have you along for the experience. Now, first of all, we have a sponsor this week. It's sponsored anonymously, and I can't tell you how meaningful this is personally. As a schus for Dovid Orlofsky, that's me, and his family and his students. So imagine that somebody is not only sponsoring the podcast, but doing it as a schus for me. So who could ask for better than that? I have been in shuls where people bid on the aliyah that they're going to give to the Rav, which is an amazing thing, and certainly something that I'm touched that somebody would have that consideration for me. So we're in the middle of our Shidduch Series, and I have a lot to get to, but I've received a disproportionate amount of mail, as you can imagine, on this topic. And I've separated them out because I'm not going to deal with every single aspect of it right now. But my last podcast where I talked about the idea of marrying a learning boy, or someone who's going to learn long term, or somebody who's going to be working, definitely elicited an enormous amount of response. I've tried to organize them, and I want you to hear what people are saying, what people are thinking, and then I'll respond to it. But I want you to at least hear. This is a selection. Some of these are a little long. I tried editing them down unsuccessfully. So some of these are a little long, but I think that they are important because I think, and this has been my experience, every person who writes me and tells me that they listen, there are many, many others who don't. And I bump into them and they say, oh, I've always listened and I've always wanted to say something. Okay. Number one, in your most recent podcast, you spoke about working versus, okay, that's right. In your most recent podcast, you spoke about working versus learning boys. And I felt like you, like most people, left out what the real girls who are looking for a boy in learning actually want. There are a lot of sincere girls out there who say that they want a learning boy when they really mean is they want a spiritually strong boy. Girls are told in seminary that the outside world today has a stronger temptation and a stronger pull than ever before. And unless a boy has a constant connection to Torah, he won't be able to withstand the pressures of the workplace and the world at large. We are told that a boy needs to start off learning in a marriage so that he can create a connection to Torah in this new stage. As well, since the transition from single to married life can affect people, that even boys who learned well beforehand can get caught up in the outside world if we don't start off this new stage in our life with a strong Torah connection. Somebody told me this once, and more than once, that the push today for everybody to learn in Kollel is because the world is so bad out there. We just have to keep everybody in Kollel just to protect them. Even guys who may not have shaykhs to learning, even people who may not be getting a sipuk from learning, but you don't want them out there. You got to keep them in the base measure. So I have heard this. But this only works if the boy who is learning is allowing himself to be a vessel for the Torah while he's doing his years of learning. If he's willing to toil in the Torah and work on it so that it can change him. Real girls are scared of getting bench warmers whose heads are out of the door as soon as they step down from the chuppah. So they end up wanting or asking for, quote, long-term learners just to filter out the fakers. Some are misled and think that a family reputation can help figure it out as well. Since a boy from a good, happy family saw Mesiras Nefesh for Torah and understands what it does for this person. But asking for a long-term learner doesn't always work. And then boys end up thinking that all the, quote, good girls want boys in learning. But if you ask real girls who have depth and passion for Torah themselves, they'll say they actually want boys who, no matter what their husband is doing, is connected to Torah and who actually want and see the Torah as their main passion. Their profession is an expression of his love for Torah and Judaism by using the kochos Hashem gave him and by fulfilling the Torah obligation to support their family. Years and support dollars don't matter to real girls who want husbands who start off learning. All those girls who are asking for learning because their seminary teacher told them to, or the boys are pretending to learn to get support, that started off with pure intentions and then warped. If we reminded people why learning is important and also push people to be in touch with themselves and allow them to follow their true passions, then the whole issue could be avoided. I tried explaining this to Shadchanim and other people, and they don't understand it at all. I'm starting to wonder if I'm the only real girl out there. Oh, there are others like me who are equally as frustrated. At 23 and still single, I tell the above to every Shadchan who asks me, working or learning. And hardly any of them seem to understand what I was trying to say. They usually end the conversation with, oh, so you want a long-term learner. You know that's impossible because your parents can't support. I'm not very popular among the Shadchanim, but that doesn't mean that I will back down from what I know to be right. Hashem will send me someone who sees things the way I do when the time is right. So, what's her point in a nutshell? Her point in a nutshell is a lot of people are asking for a learning boy because that's the only way that they know to express a boy who's serious about his ruchnius, who's serious about spirituality. Unfortunately, there are people who may be very good learners. They may be choosing to go into learning because, that's what they're supposed to do, but they're not getting that spirituality from it, right? That's what she says. Second one. I'm doing the longer ones first. I approach this question honestly and do not mean to contradict. Please tell me if I misunderstood my lessons or if the lessons have changed. When I was in seminary in 2004, almost 20 years ago, I feel that we were taught very strongly that Kol is not a death sentence. Give it 5 years and then reevaluate. We memorized the song Akiva Lech Lilmod Torah. We were encouraged to spend Shabbos at Kol families' homes and see how they do it and succeed. It was taught as an ultimate goal. There was also no wishy-washing about the hardships. We taught and saw in homes, lots of kids sleeping in one room, beds in the living room. Second hand is the only option, watering down the juice, slicing the bread thin. Iced coffees were meant only for the rich. We learned the importance of Kol and its supremacy in Jewish life and any other choice that would be a compromise. True, we learned that if needed, there were other ways, but it was made out to be a compromise. I feel that this is how it was taught to us. As such, our life choices followed suit as my husband learned full-time, and I studied a field which would for sure have a job for me during studies and afterwards. We tried hard to live within our single budget as newlyweds without familiar support, emotionally or financially, subsisting on peanut butter sandwiches during the week. It was difficult, but it didn't come as a surprise. Now, with the family size, my husband has entered the parsha for Parnasa. Not easy and not successfully yet. Though when we were dating, the comments he responded were, Hashem will provide and we will have emunah. That's what his Rebbeim taught him. Learn and don't worry about the future. Did we make a mistake? Yes, there are difficulties. No, they weren't surprises. And we weren't blinded. Although in our seminary and yeshiva years, both of us learned strongly, we're both from very modern backgrounds, that it's either learning or the highway. Now, 13 years down the line, and my husband needs to enter the Parnasa Parsha, and it's very difficult. Did we make a mistake? We were always under the impression that those would be the words in the modern world we grew up in, that we should take a leap of faith and have emunah in the way of life and how things would work out. Am I mistaken? Did I miss something, or have things just changed? Number 3. Thank you so much for your amazing podcast. I have been enjoying them since the beginning. My question is like this. When I was in Shidduchim, I wanted someone who cared about Avodas Hashem and had Yiras Shamayim. Now we're married 15 years and we have no money. My husband can't find a job. If I were in Shidduchim now, I would say I'm looking for an ambitious balabayas who's willing to support me and my kids. Is there something wrong with me? Was I not in touch with my goals at the start of marriage? Was I too idealistic? I'd appreciate any insight. I just finished listening to your 4th episode of the Shidduch Series. I have a daughter in Shidduchim who's looking for a working Kovei Itim boy. Problem is they don't make them like they used to. The same way that the girls are told to marry learning boys, the boys are told that they have to learn and not have a parnasa plan. What are girls supposed to do? What about going into Habasas Torah Chinuch? Would you put that in the same category of learning? Or do you see it as a happy medium? You're in Klei Kodesh. Please address that too. And here's the last one that I want to read. Thank you for your podcast. I had no idea that Mesilas Yesharim supported my position, but I'm glad to hear it does. When I had to leave yeshiva in Israel, I felt such guilt, but my Rebbeim assured me that I was serving Hashem in the best way for me. As the years went on, I did my best to concentrate on doing whatever I do in Hashem's service. I help people. It's what I do for a living, and it is what I do in my spare time. I always told my children, it is the highest service we can do as Bnei Yisrael. I told my children, whatever you do, do it for Ratzon Hashem, and you will spend your entire life as a Kiddush Hashem. I've made many siyumim over the years, learning when I got a chance. My Mishnayos has been my constant companion. Because of your question and answer shiurim, I've been able to give comfort to my colleagues and patients as they have dealt with some of the most difficult situations, including illness, assault, and even death. Okay. So, yeah. Yep. We were all taught the same thing. We were all taught the same thing. Yeah. Rachel seeks out Rabbi Akiva, 40 years old, Amma Aretz, can't read Aleph Beis. She's rich, she's beautiful, she is miyuchas, she's smart. And she says, I'll marry you if you go off and learn Torah. And they make an arrangement 12 years. It means he'll be 62 when he comes back. Her father disowns her. He says, what are you going to do? I'm not giving you any money. She says, I'll sell my hair. He says, you know, that's not like a steady income. And for 12 years, she's living without her husband in abject poverty. And finally, after 12 years, her husband, who's already quite a bit of a Talmid Chacham, is on his way back. He had 12,000 Talmidim at this point. So, nishlecht, as we say in French. Yeah, he was really quite successful. And he hears his wife say, if my husband was here right now, I would tell him to go back for another 12 years, and so he does. So she doesn't see him again until he's 74. And all this time, she's wearing rags, you know, absolute poverty. Beautiful. I would love for any seminary to field the phone call from the parents who say, what did you do to my daughter? So what do you mean? She found some 40-year-old Amma Aretz and told him if he would go off and learn Torah for 12 years, she would sell her hair and live in poverty to support him. What did you tell her? Well, I mean, it's an ideal. It's an ideal? Okay, listen, I'm a parent. I support my children's decisions. I have to say, you know, if my daughter came home with a 40-year-old guy who can't read, they make an arrangement for him to go away for 12 years to say, I don't know if I'm with the program. Yeah, we teach this. You want to hear something terrible? Obviously, you wouldn't listen to my podcast yet. Have bitochen. Trust. You hear these emails? A lot of people follow that advice. They learned for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and suddenly they can't, there's no way. They can't make bread, the little bit of bread appear out of thin air. And they suddenly find out there are no jobs waiting for them. Hillel Schreiner, who is one of the most exceptional people that I know. Those of you who've been to Israel and know Schreiner's Bakery, Hillel runs it, and he himself is a tremendous Talmid Chacham, and he runs this business, and he does a tremendous amount of chesed. And he says to me, every week I have from people coming in looking for a job. He says, I can't hire everybody. He says, people want to work. People want to try to be able to support their family after years of learning. Now, yeah, I learned in Yeshiva Chavetz Chaim. Yeshiva Chavetz Chaim was extremely goal-oriented. You did not have the option to sit in the Beis Medrash and learn forever. That was not the value. Yeah, it wasn't some yeshivas learning Lishma, sit in the yeshiva until you're 90. The Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Hanoch, would always say, the Gemara says, I learned from my Rebbeim, I learned more from my Chaverim, I learned the most from my Talmidim. You need Talmidim in order to grow. But it was more than that. They felt that they had a mission to go out and save Klal Yisrael. So, so there was an attitude that we were training for something, for Habatzah Satorah. I don't know if you picked this up, I'm something of an extremist. There are hints in some of my past podcasts to this, but I tend to be a very black and white person. Yeah. And I became frum at 12. And as soon as I made the decision to become frum, I knew I was going to become a rabbi. Because you're going to do it. That was my attitude. Originally, I was going to be a Rav. That was my plan. I went off to Chavetz Chaim. They told me, come to Rosh Yeshiva. I said, okay, come to Rosh Yeshiva. As time went on, I realized I did not have those skills. I ended up going into Kiruv, which was tailor-made for me. You know, I had a boundless amount of energy. And certain Kiruv organizations are more than happy to suck all of that life out of you like vampires. And after 10 years, I retired back to Eretz Yisrael. My plan was to learn for a few years and then go into Rabbanis, be a rabbi. And I couldn't, the learning was going so well, I just couldn't give it up. And so I morphed into chinuch, and where I found that I had unusual skills. And I still did some of the kiruv I did. And at some point I started lecturing, and it's okay. So I was always goal-oriented. To me, it was never, the sitting and learning the Beis Medrash wasn't the end. It was a process to be able to go on and be able to do things. And that's why when I would have students who would go out on a date, and the boy says, I want to learn long term, and they say, why? What do you want to do? And they were like, I just got to learn. Yeah. So there's no question today, and I spoke about this last time, that it's very hard to find somebody who is willing to make the decision up front that I'm going to work and have Yiras Shamayim. And that's why when this girl writes and she says, when I was dating, I thought I wanted to marry a boy with Yiras Shamayim. Did I make a mistake? No, you did not. Should you have had some kind of a plan? Of course you should have some kind of a plan. You have Ezel Chacham Arayis and Noilad. So here's the terrible story I wanted to share with you. There was a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, I don't want to call him a Baal Tshuva because he came from family, but he was a mischazek. Yeah, he became stark, super stark, and he wanted to sit and learn. And he was going out, a bunch of girls, and he was crunching the numbers because he was a very smart person, and he's crunching the numbers. And he comes to me and he says, I don't see how I'm going to make it if I stay in learning. He says, so when I talk to different rebbeim, they say, you have to have me talking. And then I asked them, how do you pay your bills? And every single one of them has some outside form of income. That's what his parents support him. This guy was left a building. This guy's got a Yerusha. This one's got this. Everybody's got something in the background. I have nothing. How am I supposed to make it? I didn't know what to tell him. I have tremendous siyata d'shmaya. Kadosh Baruch Hu gave me a gift that people want to listen to me. It is something I do not take lightly because I can't stand listening to speakers. Someone said to me once, why are you such a good speaker? I said, because I'm such a bad student. Yeah. Some people drone on. I don't know. I go to my mind, I have to keep it interesting or I'll fall asleep. So Kadosh Baruch Hu, but it's all just it's a gift from a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu. I always tell the story. My father had a business. He was going to divide up the business among the boys who were in the business. I was not in the business. He says, for you, son, I have something special. He loved to gamble. Go to Atlantic City, play cards, play dice. And there's a game there called craps, where you have to get 7-Eleven, which is a natural, and then you have to get your number, and then you have to match them. Anyway, he was sure that there was a system that you could develop to bet a certain amount and cover your bets this one that way, that you would always win. And he would pull me aside. He'd pull me aside from time to time, and he'd say to me, son, the boys are going to get the business and the boys will get the building, but you're going to get my dice system. And this way, anytime you need money, just drive down to Atlantic City and put down money. Because, and he reminded me of this very often, you will never succeed at anything. And if I don't come up with some way to help you make a living, you're going to starve to death. And by the way, I have integrated this into my sum total of my Metzias. It was actually a tremendous gift, because I would be insufferable if I ever stopped to think of how many people write me and talk to me and tell me, you said this to change my life, you said this to change my life. If I ever stop to think about it, forget it. Luckily, it doesn't matter what anybody says, because I hear my father saying, Allah Yitzlach, you'll never succeed in anything. That's why somebody says to me, I listened to your recordings from 30 years ago. You sound exactly the same. You haven't picked up any affectations or anything. I said, yeah, because none of this stuff affects me. One of my daughters spent a couple of years in America. She came home once for a trip. She goes, Abby, you're famous? I said, get out of here. No, really, I meet people. I say, oh, I'm Rabbi Orlofsky's daughter. Like, oh, Rabbi Orlofsky. But none of that goes in, because of Yitzlach. So I used to say, I have a father up in heaven. And he said the same thing that my father down on earth said. You're lo Yitzlach. And if I don't come up with some way to support you, you're going to starve to death. So he gave me the ability that people are willing to pay me money to listen to me talk. Yeah. Once upon a time. I used to go places and speak, and very exciting. But I was clever because I made sure that my career collapsed at least 8 months before coronavirus hit. So this way I didn't lose anything. It was like in the economic downturn of 2008 when everybody lost their investments. My only investment was my overdraft on my checking account, and it was untouched. So I came out unscathed. I didn't lose anything. My overdraft was still there, So, but so yeah, I have an ace in the hole. What if I didn't have that? A very difficult thing. So this guy says to me, because I find everybody's got something on the side. Now, this young lady writes, I'm married for 13 years. We're eating peanut butter sandwiches. Iced coffee is a luxury. Things are very, very difficult. Am I wrong? No, you're not wrong. And I did not stress this the last time, but I will. The East is considered the most important position because it's the rising sun. So it represents leadership. And who goes on the east of the camp? Yehuda. Yehuda is Malchus, it's kingship. And with him goes Yisachar and Zvulun. Yisachar are those who learn Torah, and Zvulun are those who support Torah. Are they important? The most important. Who sits up front? Talmidei Chachamim. We stand up when a Talmid Chacham walks into a room, covered at Torah, 100%. If a person says to me, I've decided that I want to sit and learn, whatever the consequences are, and a girl says, I want to live that life, what am I going to tell her? That's wrong? I'm not going to tell you it's wrong. I'm not going to tell you it's wrong. I'm going to tell you, be real. Like this other girl wrote, and she says, I don't want a guy in learning. I want a guy with Yiras Shamayim. So if that person has Yiras Shamayim because he's sitting and he's learning, Dr. Moti Stern is a very famous individual. He's one of the top people in implants, dental implants. And he's a tremendous Talmid Chacham. He's close to so many Gedolim. He could tell you stories of Gedolim that he had personal ksharim with, just amazing, amazing things. And he said to me, you think I'm a dentist? He said, I do chesed all day. That's what I do. I have people walk into my office who gave up the hope of ever eating an apple. They have the teeth. And they walk out with new teeth, they can eat an apple. I'm doing chesed. You created lots of different people with all kinds of different lackings. So you need somebody who's going to run a grocery store, and you need someone who's going to be a baker, and someone's going to be a butcher, and someone's going to learn Torah, and somebody's going to, be a doctor. Somebody told me once, he says, I was a lawyer. I gave it up to sit and learn, and eventually I went to chinuch. He says, if I would have just sat in chinuch, nobody would pay any attention to me. But because I had a real job and I gave it up, so now I'm chashuv. Much more than if I just sat and learned. When I was in yeshiva, there was a fellow who was 40 years old. He'd been learning from the time he was 3. 40 years old. He was a shol meshiv. Sat in the back of the base medrash and would answer questions during prep time. And he was thrilled to have that job. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. Massive Talmid Chacham. So if you're willing to do that, what am I going to tell you? That's not an ideal? For sure it's an ideal. Does it go up on a pedestal? Sure it goes up on a pedestal. But not everybody wants to live on a pedestal. And you got to be real. You got to decide whether or not you are in a position to handle that lifestyle and be honest. So the mother writes me and says, well, there are no good boys today. I don't want to say there are none. None is too strong a word. There's some. But I think the system is designed in such a way to discourage a good boy. Like someone said, certain people go into learning because they think that's the only way they're going to get a good girl. So I have no choice. I'm going to sit in basement to learn, even though I have other things that I would like to do. So I had a girl, and she was looking to marry a Ben Torah, boy in learning. And she was a secretary for a kibbutz organization. And the shadchanim told her, the type of boy you're looking for doesn't want a girl who's in a who's in a kibbutz organization. Quit your job and get a regular job, in the Diamond Center or something like that. You know, a nice Jewish girl's supposed to be. My little kibbutz. So she calls me up and she said, should I quit my job for Shidduch? I said, who are you working for? Partners in Torah. She's not going out into Ben Yehuda Street trying to get guys to come to yeshiva. She's a secretary for Partners in Torah where they arrange chavrusas over the phone. I said, are you being effective? She says, yes. I said, are you helping spread Torah? She said, yes. I said, I don't know what to tell you. My God doesn't punish people who do Ratzon Hashem. That's not my God. There are other gods out there, perhaps. But my God, the God of the Jewish people of the Old Testament, my God doesn't punish you because you're doing the right thing. And one of my expressions I used to do all the time was, you can never be wrong by being right. Can't be wrong by doing the right thing. You're helping people come close to Torah, and you think the only way that you can find your shidduch is if you give that up? Can't be. It can't be. 6 months later, she married a yeshiva boy. Baruch Hashem. Yeah. Not all my stories have endings. Forget about happy endings, but this one does. What am I supposed to do? I'm doing the wrong thing by doing the right thing. You understand how crazy we are? If a boy has a sense of responsibility, and I'm talking about a good boy, I'm not talking about a bummy boy. I'm talking about a good boy. He davens, he's koveya itim, he has nice midos, he's good to his parents, he's involved in chesed, but he wants to support his family. Not everybody likes peanut butter sandwiches. Some people are allergic. I had a young lady who was married to a guy in learning. She really thought that's what she wanted. Then she said, I told my husband, I said, I can't wake up in the morning knowing I don't have a diaper for the baby. I can't do that. I can't live that way. So if you can live that way, is it admirable? Will we sing a song about you? 100%. Will we tell stories about you? Sure. Will you go on the east? Will you sit on the Mizrach? 100%. But be real. You gotta decide what it is you really want. That's why I say, if you say to me, didn't they teach us that learning is the ideal? Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And yet, when somebody decides that he's leaving and he's going into business because he has to support his family, and then the community looks down on him. You want to hear a horror story? Sure you do. This fellow started a shul, one of the new neighborhoods in Eretz Yisrael. I don't want to get too specific. Started a shul with a couple of other people. He found them a place. He helped raise money for it. These other guys weren't in a position to raise money. He raised money. He got somebody to donate furniture. He got, he put together a whole shul. And eventually he brought in a Rav. And after a few months, the Rav said, you can't be the gabbai here anymore. She says, why? He says, because you're a working boy. Only Avrechem daven for the Amid and can be a gabbai. He said, but I started this shul. I hired you. I know, but this is a minyan for Avrechem. Chashiv, you're a working boy. So I mean, I'm not saying you can't daven here, but you can't daven for the Amid. You can't be the gabbai here. That we can't have. I don't know. Does it make sense to you? Doesn't make sense to me. In my my time as a famous speaker traveling around, every now and then I'd be asked to speak at one of these lunch and learns. Lawyers, accountants, investment bankers schedule time in their day to be able to get together and listen to a shiur. Rabbanim run around the ritziest areas of the cities to learn with these people an hour, and they tell their secretary, hold all calls for this hour, I'm with the rabbi. On rare occasions, I've been dragged to these morning koilim, these people before they go to work at like 5 o'clock in the morning. Some other ungodly hour when milkmen and garbage men are wandering the streets. Oh, and also a bunch of successful business people who are all getting to learn for 2 hours and then daven in the morning. Some genius decided that, they would gain a lot from hearing me speak about the joys of coffee. It's nice to see everybody here learning, and I think it's a very special thing. Yeah, that was inspiring. Diane Geltel, the boss of the Dayan, he used to give a daf yomi at 5 o'clock in the morning. He says to me, why don't you come? I said, 5 o'clock in the morning? He says, yeah, well, you just go to sleep then, right? He knew I was much more of a night person, I was like, yeah, it's just before you go to bed, you can come to the daf yomi. There was a time when Klal Yisrael was a board made up of different shapes. You know that little toy that they get for kids? There's a hole that's it's round, there's a hole that's square, there's a triangle, like a star. And you get different pieces and you have to put them into the right hole. And today we have a toy, it's only made up of round holes. So if you're a round peg and you fit in, it's perfect. If you're a square peg, then we bang it into the hole until it's chipped, and then say there's something wrong with the piece and toss it away. That's not a learning boy. Mike Tress was coming back from Europe after the war. And he sees a chassid in the airport and he says, can I borrow your tefillin? I said, sure. So he opens up his coat and he doesn't have a shirt. And he starts putting in the tefillin and the guy doesn't say anything. And afterwards he says to him, listen, you're not supposed to daven like that. He says, I know, but what could I do? I went to the DP camps and nobody had any shirts. So back in America, I got shirts. I gave them all my shirts. He looks down. He says, I gave him my shoes. He was wearing slippers. He says, that's what I don't have any slippers. What do you think I don't have any tefillin? I gave away my tefillin to somebody because I didn't have tefillin to wear. I kept my coat because I was afraid I would die. This is balabus. It's balabus. Ay. So if you say to me, who's more chashuv, right? The person who sits and learns, Yom V'Layla, tremendous. As we saw in the Mesilas Yesharim, can they all reach the highest spiritual levels? Yes. Is it admirable if you decide that you want to live a life of simplicity, like Thoreau, out in the wilds? Yeah, beautiful. On Walden's Pond, great. But you got to be real. Don't marry who you're supposed to marry. Marry who you want to marry. Go for the best. For you. Understand? Some people want to find the best husband and father. Some people want to find the best wife and mother. And some people want to make the best shidduch. That's not what it's about. All right, we got more to talk about. But I just wanted to read some of the responses because I think it's really important to talk about this. And it could be, there'll be more to say on the subject. In any event, that's it for this week. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can leave a comment. You can ask a question. You can donate, sponsor an episode in honor of yourself or me or anybody else. It doesn't have to be about me, but, a special shout out to Anonymous. Thank you very much. And that's it. I'm Dovid Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode. And we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah, anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.